Folks, I got a question for you. How many of you really think that police unions have too much power and that our elected officials basically let them get away with murder? Literally. I just came across a story that I'm going to read to you regarding Michigan jailers that received outcries for help from an inmate with mental issues, and they chose to ignore those cries to the point that the lady did effectively commit suicide. Here's the story. Michigan jailer fired for ignoring suicidal inmate's pleas for help as she hung herself was reinstated with back pay. Before she strapped a bra around her neck and tried to hang herself from a prison shower head in Women's Huron Valley Correctional Facility in Michigan, Janika Edmond asked prison guards for a suicide prevention vest. But state correction officers Corey Moore and Deanna Callahan blew her off, mocking her instead, talking amongst themselves about a bet they had placed on whether or not the inmate would ask for the vest. Callahan had won the bet, so she started taunting Moore about how she now owed her a Subway sandwich. Meanwhile, the weight of Edmund's body on the showerhead caused the bra to break, resulting in a 25-year-old mentally ill inmate falling to the floor and landing on the back of her head. Several minutes went by before the guards noticed the inmate was lying in a pool of blood, dying. The inmate's choking sounds were recorded on a prison video feed. She was eventually rushed to the hospital but was taken off life support 4 days later after it was determined she was brain dead. The incident took place on November 2, 2015, resulting in both guards placed on administrative leave before they were fired 4 months later. It was only then, after reading a local news report about the terminations, that Michigan State Police became aware of Edmund's death, launching a criminal investigation into the matter. See, and that's why we need laws enforced, because there are already laws on the books. But we need laws enforced that whenever there is a death in custody, that those events are reported to the Fed so they could keep track of this stuff. This death occurred and there was no actual reporting. Okay? None. And the Michigan State Police only found out about it after a local news station reported the terminations, not the death, but the terminations, which was 4 months later. So they're 4 months behind the 8 ball as far as actually looking into this. But that being said, the investigation led to involuntary manslaughter and willful neglect charges being filed against Callahan last month, and she is now facing 15 years in prison, according to MLive.com. But Moore was not only cleared of any criminal charges, she managed to win her job back through an arbitration process with the help of her union. She will also receive back pay for the 9 months she did not work since she was fired. She will return to her supervisory position as a resident unit manager and prison counselor, a position she received in August 2015, less than 3 months before Edmund's death. This bitch was a supervisor, and she had the fucking gall not to respect the request for aid by the prisoner, and she's supervising people, and then they were betting on whether the lady was going to ask for a vest or not, and then they ignored her outcry for help. How the fuck does she, how does she get her job back? Hell, she should have been and should have been charged as well. The story goes on to say that She was Callahan's supervisor the day they mocked Edmond for asking for the damn vest. According to the police complaint, Callahan caused Edmond's death through negligent omission and by failing to fulfill her legal duty to timely and properly respond to a suicidal statement by an inmate. Just 20 minutes before she was found unconscious on the prison shower floor, Edmond told jailers she should kill herself and requested a suicide vest. And they ignored the damn request. And the lady had a history of stuff, so that they knew that she was mentally ill, and they just ignored her. There is no question she not only declared her intention to commit suicide, but asked for a suicide vest, David Steingold, an attorney representing the Edmonds family, said. Instead of helping Edmonds, Callahan can be heard on security video at the prison shouting, "Somebody owes me lunch," an apparent reference to the bet made as to whether or not Edmond would ask for the vest, a restrictive smock with Velcro used to prevent someone from being able to hurt themselves. Video footage shows Callahan leaving the area and appearing to wave and pump her fist 3 times with her thumb up while nodding her head and looking in the direction of the control area, according to Michigan State Police. Excuse me. According to police documents, Callahan then walks over to Corey Moore to talk about the Subway sandwich waged in their bet. 4 minutes later, sounds of choking are heard up over the prison's security audio. Several inmates heard the choking and pleaded for prison staff to help Edmond, shouting, "Sarge, Sarge." Audio from the prison surveillance camera captured Edmond choking and gasping for air during the next several minutes until a call over radio is finally made for all health care and yard staff to report to the segregation area. Prison personnel performed CPR for several more minutes, managing to resuscitate Edmond after her heart stopped beating while waiting for an ambulance to arrive. She was pronounced brain dead a few days later after apparently donating her organs before she was taken off a life support ventilator. Upon entering the prison, the only number listed as an emergency contact was a friend. No one from Huron Valley Correctional Facility attempted to reach her family. Medical staff told prison officials Edmond was brain dead, unlikely to survive, and inquired whether she would be suitable for organ donation. So they wanted her goddamn organs. So that's why they didn't reach out to the family, even though on her emergency contact numbers, she had listed a friend. But after she died, it would have been the humane thing to do to contact the family. Because at that point, it was no longer an emergency. You know, she was brain dead and she was going to be taken off life support. Prison officials responded saying Edmond had no next of kin, only a friend listed for a contact, and it would be up to the Attorney General to continue or terminate care, according to the investigation by state police. Edmond's father told state police investigators he was unaware of his daughter's suicide attempt or even that she had been hospitalized until after he showed up at the prison trying to visit her several days later. The warden bore the bad news in the prison lobby. Michigan Department of Corrections spokesman Chris Galt said the prison was fulfilling Edmond's wishes. Yeah, okay. The prisoner chose to not list her biological family members on her emergency contact list, and so we contacted the person she did place on that list, he wrote in an email, according to Michigan Radio. This prisoner was an adult and made the decision she did not want her biological family notified if there was an emergency, and we respected her wish. That is fucking bullshit. The lady had mental issues, okay? So clearly she wasn't making a rational decision. But they respected the wishes of a mentally ill person? Give me a fucking break. They shoot mentally ill people, okay? So, but they could respect the wishes of this mentally ill person. According to prison and jail records and her family, Janika Edmond led a tough life. Recently, Edmond attempted suicide in 2014, attempting to strangle herself with a towel in her cell, according to prison records. So they knew that she was a high suicide risk because she had done it before. And yet and still, they don't take the precaution of giving her the suicide vest and ignoring her. So that's willful neglect at a minimum. Several other attempts were documented while she was at the Lenawee County Jail. Edmund had several convictions for assault, resisting arrest, and breaking and entering, was prescribed medication to treat depression and bipolar disorder. Records show Edmund was in constant conflict with prison staff for swearing, yelling, not following orders, and fighting with other inmates. Shortly before her death, Edmund had been actively working to rebuild a relationship with her biological family, according to attorney Steingold. Although Steingold has not yet filed a lawsuit, he told the Detroit Free Press, figures Detroit, that the failure to prevent Edmund's suicide is indicative of broader problems at Huron Valley Correctional Facility, like overcrowding and a lack of mental and physical health treatment. Folks, I don't know about you, but this is bullshit. They fired both people. One of them is facing actual charges. The other one was a supervisor. I ask you, is that what a supervisor is supposed to do? Not only did her subordinate ignore the lady's plea, the supervisor, who's supposed to know better, ignores her plea. And she's able to get her job back? No, there's no flipping way that lady should have got her job back. And this is just another case of the union stepping in, okay, and flexing their muscle as far as their employees, work stoppages, whatever, and the public officials caving into these assholes. They need to strip these unions down. They should only be able to work on salaries and things of that nature, and actual wrongdoing where there was no criminal or felonious activity involved in the termination of one of the either correction officers or even police officers. If anything went down where there was any kind of wrongdoing, and I mean that needed to be determined by an outside third party, the union should have no say-so, and there should be nothing in any of their collective bargaining agreements allowing them to even debate the issue without those particular circumstances. This is just another case of law enforcement covering their ass and covering the ass of their affiliated, i.e. correction officers, when they clearly were negligent, and I would suggest complicit in the death of this woman.